This one I'm talking about is Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale.
Yes. This is a modern classic, actually. And this was a very difficult movie to find for a while before all the streaming platforms blew up and they started picking it up. Yeah.
And so this is a Finnish film. This one was not dubbed. I think I just watched the subtitles. But so actually, the cool thing about it from a filmmaking perspective is it was based on a short film they did back in 2003, just called Rare Exports.
Yeah.
And then they did a sequel to that a couple of years later. And those I think they're on YouTube. And I think you can find them on YouTube, the two short films.
Mm-hmm.
And they got such a cult following because of how absurd it was, that they then pitched doing the feature version of Rare Exports.
Yeah.
And then they got the funding came from the actual government, because outside of the US, a lot of countries actually fund filmmaking and give tax credits. So so you get films. That's why you get a lot of these cool films. They really are indie films. Like if you watch Rare Exports, it looks fantastic. And if you watch some of these other ones, like I guarantee you, some of these other ones, when you watch the credits at the end, you can see they're partly funded by film funds that are from the government. This one definitely was. And I actually think it's something that's kind of cool about a lot of countries that basically invest in the arts, invest in film, and they're vested in it too. So it means if it makes money, they get money back.
Yeah.
But the idea is to make projects like this that otherwise would simply not get financed or done. And of course, obviously, the US is very capitalistic when it comes to the market, and there's so many films there that they don't really do a lot of this. But this one definitely was funded by like whatever, the Finnish government and a couple other ones. So that's the only reason this exists. Now, this, of course, obviously is like, I don't even know where to start. There's nothing really else like it, like because it's so different. But it's definitely a Christmas movie, because basically we open up somewhere in Finland and they're mining for something, but they actually believe that where they're mining and looking for something is the burial ground of Santa Claus, because we're up somewhere more. So they believe that where they are, they're like, we're going to awaken Santa Claus, who's buried in a tomb. The tomb of Santa Claus is here. And they're literally referring to it as Santa Claus. It's not like they give him some other thing. It's like, this is the tomb of Santa Claus. So basically, after a bunch of adventures here, we got helicopters, there's reindeer, like one guy's a reindeer hunter.
Yeah.
And they unleash, they come across this naked old white man with a beard. And they're like, holy shit, it's Santa Claus. Because he's kind of roaming like a zombie. He doesn't really talk. And they kidnap this guy, and they bring him back to the thing. It's almost like part the thing, like where they're in, like
that's true. Yeah, where like, they're in Antarctica and they're digging up the spaceship. That's buried in there. Yeah,
exactly. They're like in Antarctica. They're digging stuff up, and they have this like deep exploratory stuff. It's like basically, then they find a Santa Claus outfit. They put it on this guy, and they try to sell him, because they're like, we found Santa Claus, the real Santa Claus. He must be worth some money. And so and I mean, and I think there's like lots of like, it's creepy at parts, but it's funny at parts. It's like there's high budget, there's like fields of slaughtered reindeer, like there's a helicopter, they're running over stuff. Long and short, basically Santa Claus, so this old man is not actually Santa Claus. He's basically Santa Claus's evil elf helper. Right. And it actually, we find out there's not just one of them. There's fucking hundreds of them, thousands of them. And they all look the same. Naked, old, white bearded men. And they're roaming around basically mindlessly doing Santa Claus's beck and call, whatever evil deeds Santa Claus wants. Because Santa Claus is a huge horned creature that's trapped in ice. And at one point, I don't give a crap. I'm going to talk about this one because it's awesome, because you have to talk about it. So basically, the elves try to thaw Santa, who's this massive horned creature, and they're like, "Fuck, we can't have this happen." So they like blow him up. But then they basically at the end have these thousands of Santa Claus looking elves, and what they do, and it's why it's called Rare Exports, is they decide to train them all to act like Santa, and then ship them around the world to be mall Santas.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Billy Bob Thornton is like the good version of that in Bad Santa.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bonkers movie. There's nothing else like it, but it's entertaining as hell. And I thought this was the best find. And realistically, it was originally hard to find, and because it came out in 2010. so it's over 10 years old. But now it's on Tubi, and it's a must see. Rare exports, A Christmas Tale. I mean, and I think that the cool thing about how the streaming things is going, and how like Squid Game and a bunch of stuff are changing the game now, you're going to see more and more foreign films like this end up on the streaming platforms, because it's so easy to dub them, and I think we're starting to see that there is an audience for them. Like, people want to see them, right? Like, I think before you would have saw like a Hollywood executive would have been like, no one wants to see an obscure Finnish horror film. But all of a sudden now we're realizing, actually, you know what, dub it, or and we will. I mean, Christ, one of my favorite shows on Netflix is Narcos, and you read the whole thing. And
it's true.
And you know what? And they're how many different seasons of Narcos have they done? There's 3 in Mexico alone, let alone the other one. So it's like, and you have to read the whole thing because it's basically all in Spanish, right? And so anyhow, I think you're going to see this as a trend, and that these foreign films are going to get more and more traction.
And it will ease people. I think Netflix is doing a good job of easing people into getting familiar with, because there's a lot of like great stuff. Like, there's a lot of great international cinema stuff that you're missing out on if you don't watch. But you do kind of have to get eased into it by like the dub stuff, and then like once you start to get into it, then you'll watch the subtitled stuff. But if the movie's good, the movie's good. Doesn't matter whether it's dubbed or
exactly. And I think that Squid Game showed it, that like they did such a good job dubbing that a lot of people who don't want to read I've watched so many obscure foreign films that like I'm so used to subtitles that it doesn't bother me. But I think this showed it to me. Like, I watched it. It's a great, like, the budget. It's a low budget film. Like, I would say, I mean, it's probably at least $1 million, right? Just looking at it. I mean, it's got some CG. It's got some helicopters floating around and massive explosions, but it looks great for what it is. And it's still a low budget indie film, but there's a worldwide audience for this stuff. And I think you're going to see more and more of that.
Definitely, absolutely, and especially with like how we've been talking about lately, how generic Hollywood has become. There's going to be more of a hunger for this stuff that's different,
to find something like this that literally I can't think of anything that it's like, oh, what this is kind of like. And I'm like, it's kind of like nothing. But also, like, looking kind of at it right now, it says the budget. I mean, the budget's like $2 million, but it made $4 million at the box office, and it's probably making a lot more money. Like, now that it's on video and streaming and stuff, because people are checking it out. Now, those numbers to someone in Hollywood are nothing. They wouldn't even touch that with a 10-foot pole. But as an indie filmmaker, if you could raise $2 million and it makes $4 million, that's a huge win. It's a massive win. And so I think the numbers like this are gonna are really gonna, like, you're gonna see more and more indie film like this get done. And it's more now that we've got all these ways to get it out. I mean, I think that's a huge win, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives us more cool, different stuff to watch, which is fantastic.